The truth sets you free. With the world's fastest reader, Howard Stephen Burg. Hi everyone, Howard Burg, world's fastest reader. Welcome to another show. We have another great guest, and we're going to have some fun. But first, we'd like to thank Dr. Sugg, our sponsor, for sponsoring us. And Dr. Sugg is my dentist, but he's also the dentist for the NFL Players Association, and for good reason. For 40 years, he's worked 6 days a week, 14 hours a day. I'd like to think you learn something if you do it that often. And Dr. Sugg has learned a lot. I remember I had an infection in my upper gum, and it was such a serious surgery that normally would have been done in a hospital under anesthesia. Dr. Sugg did it in his office, and it was such a delicate procedure. He had other dentists standing in the room, like in the movies where they have a surgical theater, watching to see how do you do that. And that's how good he is. And if you give him a call at 972-22-SMILE, he will make you smile. He's an amazing guy. He does a lot of great things. He's all over the map. He does sleep apnea. He does cosmetic dentistry, serious surgery and endodentistry. Someone you want to know, and if you or anyone you know needs dental work, check him out. You'll be glad you did. I use him, and my wife as well. Well, I'd like to give you I was trying to think of a fun tip to do today. And one of the things people often will ask me is, how do you remember somebody's name? You hear that a lot. And you know, it's important. Zig Ziglar and a number of other trainers would say someone's name is like the single most important thing in the language. And how often we don't remember. You know, you're in the store and they come over and they introduce themselves and it's like, oh no, I don't remember their name. It happens every day. Well, you don't want that to happen. I'm going to show you how to remember a name. Basically what you do is you make a picture with the person. Let's say the person's name is John. Now, the more profound the picture, the more ridiculous, the better. So a John is a men's urinal. And as I said, the more profound, the better. And I picture this person having a John on their head, literally a toilet. And I associate John and John. And then when I see him, it makes me laugh. And what do I remember? I remember their name. His name was John. And I mean, it sticks. So let's say their name is Robin. Picture them with a red breast. They're Robin Redbreast. That's another one. Makes it easy. How about my name? Howard Burg. How is a question? So I see a question mark on top of an iceberg. An iceberg. A question mark on an iceberg. How would Burg? And I could see the question mark on a piece of wood sitting on an iceberg. And this activity of creating the picture helps you to remember. And after a while, you kind of get it down. I mean, there's just so many names that you typically hear. Names like John, pretty common. Robin, pretty common. And then you have your pictures all set up. And that's how you remember people's names. And here's a name you're going to want to remember, Evan Sanchez, who's my guest today. Thank you for coming.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
He has an intro. I'm going to read a little about it. He's got a proven record as an entrepreneur with superior sales management skills. And I think interesting, we're going to talk about this, the heart of a coach. He's often helping small and large businesses reach their performance levels and maximize their assets within organizations. And he has a flow coaching psychology. So why don't we start with that?
Sure.
You capitalize the word flow. So obviously that's a pretty significant term. What is flow coaching psychology and what is it? How does it work?
Absolutely. Well, the coaching psychology is called intuitive flow. And I created that coaching psychology as a personal trainer. And the main reason was we had people that were paying us good money, coming into the gym, working out with us, and they still weren't getting the results. And in many cases, they weren't doing what we told them to do. And so the question was, if these people are paying good money and they say this is what they want, then why is it that they're not taking action? And so a lot of it has to do with their internal person and how well they actually listen to themselves. And what we find is that most of our biggest barriers to success are the beliefs, the limiting beliefs, and the negative thoughts that we have inside our mind that actually keep us from achieving those visions and those goals and those dreams. So the coaching psychology was basically to introduce them to a thought process that if they repeated enough times, it would become intuitive. flow happens to be a word for a ultimate performance state. So in athletics, you hear things like the zone. You hear things like, oh, wow, we were doing so well. We weren't even really thinking about what we were doing. It was just happening, and we were in the flow, or we were receiving. When you hear people talk about high performance states of love and abundance and just overall exciting, the best experiences of their life, those are all things that kind of encapsulate the word flow. So intuitive flow is about helping you connect to the more positive thoughts, the more positive beliefs that can actually lead you to accomplishing your dreams and finding balance in your life.
It sounds a lot like emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
And that's a big, I agree with you.
Yeah.
The single most important skill you can master in life is emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And there's two kinds. There's self-emotional control, like don't blow up at people unnecessarily.
Right.
And then there's the ability to communicate and get along with other people.
Right.
And so you have found that a good part of the failure was wrong internal dialogue, perhaps? They were thinking or saying the wrong thing to themselves?
Absolutely. One of the number one behaviors that we teach, and number one is know yourself. And the whole idea is,
Delphi.
Yeah, if I know myself, then I can start to control myself, which is the second level of emotional intelligence. Once I've got myself handled, now I can start looking outside of that box and looking towards other people. How do I identify what other people's strengths, weaknesses, preferences may be? And then how do I modify my behavior so that I can reduce conflict and improve performance?
So I guess my question would be, do you give them tools for self-observing and analyzing, or do you just ask them to perform that? Is there a system for that?
We actually teach a number of different tools. There's social scientists that discovered 4 basic behavioral styles back in the 50s, and we utilize that program. It's called Social Styles.
Okay.
Moving into the 90s, there was some more self-introspection tools like Strength Finders.
Oh.
And Strength Finders helps everybody identify what their top 5 strengths are so that you can start applying those to being successful. But that doesn't necessarily reach the others, right?
Right.
I have to control myself and then move towards the others, right?
Do they also look at those things on others to try to find what their strengths might be?
Well, they do, because then you can kind of put it together in a whole graph and you can see what strengths fall where. But at the end of the day, it all goes back to these 4 basic communication styles and preferences. And it's kind of along the lines of competing values. Some people like to tell people what they want, and some people like to ask people to do things for them as they exert influence. Some people like to talk about the task and the results that they're looking for, and then others like to focus more on the people or the emotions that are involved. And depending upon where you fall on those 2 scales, you actually end up having a preferred communication style. When we teach people that, that's when they reach their first level of knowing themselves. The second level is how well can I control, and then how well can I move towards others. But one of the things I wanted to share today is that there has been some new findings in neuroscience where we hear all these things about technology and algorithms and all this really cool software as a service stuff out there. And we've actually found a tool, it's called 10 Rule. And with 10 Rule, we can actually measure somebody's, it's 10 and then RULE.
10 Rule.
Yeah, with the 10 Rule program, what we've been able to do is to identify the negative thinking algorithms that get in people's way of being able to execute or accomplish something. And then we've also been able to identify what are the positive thinking algorithms that helps people to be successful. Now, the cool part about that is what we were just talking about was all what they call soft skills, right? It was something that's just qualitative. It's not necessarily measurable. When you go into a company and the CFO goes, well, what's the ROI going to be on this training? You can't really tell them because it was soft skills and it was qualitative. With these new thinking algorithms, they've been able to identify these performance thinking thoughts, and these algorithms are mapped now so that we can say, if we reduce you here, these negative thinking algorithms, we move you over here, we coach you up on these positive thinking algorithms, we can impact performance by 10 and 30%. And our programs are actually clinically validated. So we've just moved the soft skill from a qualitative measure to a quantitative measure.
Which is so important because companies are all about the bottom line.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I've had that with speed reading. It's like, why do we care if people read faster and go home and read a magazine?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you have a computer and you upgrade your software. This is all the decisions they're making is what they know. And if you increase the knowledge base, they're going to know more and make better choices. So you're completely right about that. That it's the negative thinking. So is that a major focus of your company, or do you have other focuses as well?
It's a major focus. It even goes back to intuitive flow. Intuitive flow started with a thought process where we were introducing people to positives and negatives, and how do we identify these negative thoughts and then reframe them in a positive way, so that they can continue to move forward.
I know what a reframe is, but I'm not sure if our audience is familiar. It may not mean the same thing to them. Could you tell people what a reframe is?
Well, I'll give you an example of a personal experience I had as a personal trainer, and I was going through these methodologies myself, right? I mean, we're our own test guinea pigs when we start something new.
Yeah.
And the example was I was going to work and I was late as usual, and I needed to get gas. I didn't realize I needed gas, so now the stress levels start going up. I go into the 7-Eleven, and at the 7-Eleven, there's an older gentleman in front of me saying, what does this lotto card do? And what does this lotto card do? And how can I win on this? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to get to work. You know,
Right.
I was thinking I'm going to have to beat the wrinkles off this guy. But I stopped myself and I said, hey, if you think you're so smart, what can you do to make this situation better? So instead of sitting there whining and complaining and getting mad and getting angry, it was to reframe that to say, hey, if you think you can do something to help this situation, how or what can you do right now? And it's really about that, right? It wasn't about putting it on other people. It was about putting it on myself and saying, okay, how can I make this better? How can I make this situation work for me? And as I started to reframe those things that made me angry and stressed and started looking at it from the solution side of things, how can I make things better? I think that's really when my mind begun to change.
And what did you do
What did I do that day?
to reframe it?
Well, number one, it was partly identifying those instances and those circumstances where these negative thoughts came into play.
Okay.
So it's first all about the identification. Then it was communicating those things to other people, you know, what it was that you could do, what it was that you wanted to do. And a lot of times those people now allowed you to have some kind of peer support, right? So that they can also kind of keep you in check when you let them know what your intentions are. The third part is really just moving forward, taking some type of action. You know, they say that people have brilliant ideas, they can start new businesses, but if they don't take that new idea and do something with it within 72 hours, it's probably never going to happen. But if you can identify what that is, what that negative thought is, you can communicate to others what you're trying to do with that, you can then take some action, you're going to end up coming about some type of resolution. It may not be right away, and it may take further time, but when you have the support of others around you, that's when you're going to be successful.
Well, I had an experience also with reframes many years ago. One of the oil terminals, it was in Louisiana. It was in Beaumont, where they have a lot of oil, and one of the tanks blew up because one of the mechanics didn't set the dials correctly, and he died, and they lost millions of dollars worth of fuel, and they wanted me to fix it. They said these people weren't able to do decimals, fractions, and percentages. Could you fix it? And so I said, sure. Can they make change of $1? Because a 0.25 is a quarter. It's 25% of $1, and 0.10 is 10% of $1. And if you look at all the denominations, a penny is 1%, a nickel's 5%. Says, can they make change of $1? They should stop thinking about it as numbers and think of it as making change. And that's a reframe. They're looking at the same thing with a different set of eyes. So I could see where that would be very valuable to companies to be able to go in and teach that in your business. So in addition to the psychological component, you were mentioning you do a lot of funding as well. What is that about?
Well, in starting and kicking off our new company, Springboard Consulting, last year, one of my goals was to kind of get out of what we call the thought leadership race. You know, we're always looking to put new papers out there, get new ideas out there so that you can be seen as a thought leader in the industry, and therefore that then brings business to you. I saw a space in the market where you have venture capital, private equity, and in some cases angel investors who are out there touting that they have money. And then you see shows like Shark Tank out there, right? And you see some great business ideas that come through. And there's been some great business ideas on Shark Tank where they've said no, and I was thinking, hey, I'd say yes to that. What can I do? And I had done some work, some process work to help a private equity firm understand how to evaluate investments. And they said, you know, hey, can you help us with this process? Because there's going to be people we say yes to, and there's going to be people we say no, but if you had this, we would say yes. And so they wanted to identify those critical areas that if they were lacking, they could say this is what you needed and this is how you can fix it. So we put together the process and presented it to them. They said, this is great work, but we don't have the capability to do this.
And I said, the money.
Well, we do, and you have the money. So that was the spark of the business idea there. And I said, okay, well, if we can go connect with 3 to 5 strategic alliances for private equity, angel investor, venture capital, not only could we connect people with great business ideas to the funding to help them grow, we can kind of provide any type of skills gap that the entrepreneur may have, or relationships gaps that they need filled.
Can you elucidate on that? What's, for example, would it be like a support staff or ancillary roles in the company? Like the CEO isn't necessarily good at finance.
Exactly. So most founders are great at ideas and big picture thinking, but then when they get funding, then they're asked to behave like a CEO. And some of them have never acted like a CEO or had hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to know what to do with that money.
Correctly, yeah.
So, you know, we lean upon some of our consultants that we have. We learn upon our leadership and sales consulting. And whatever gaps they have, we surround them with our team.
And so your team supplements their weak points.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now when we go back to their funding or to their pitches that they're promoting, they can say they have this experienced, strong team behind them.
Which helps to get more investing as well, because one of the things they're going to look at is, where's your team?
Yeah.
And what have they done?
Absolutely. And on the flip side, those same companies have portfolios of business. And so in those portfolios of business, their portfolios are expected to bring 10x returns or 20x returns. And if those investments are going off track, we can also be a resource at that time to call us in.
So do you run like quarterly or monthly meetings, and you kind of do an assessment of what the plan was and where it's actually going and how to get back on track? Is that part of what you're doing?
Absolutely. Everything starts with some type of discovery. Once we figure out where the pain points are or the opportunities for growth are, then we can actually go into design. We design the plans, we bring people in, we make it a collaborative effort. Then we deliver through facilitation, through coaching, and sometimes just doing everything on our own to produce the types of results that they're looking for. But you know, here over the past year, the main thing that we've been promoting is a workshop called Sell Like a Champ.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so Sell Like a Champ was basically came from the fact that I've been in sales and I've been a sales manager for a long time.
I think you mentioned you worked for, I'm trying to think the
Dallas Business Journal.
And you said you did stuff in Tarrant.
Yes, I was the director of sales for Tarrant and Denton County with the Dallas Business Journal.
Big counties.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody knows anything about Dallas and Fort Worth, they're not necessarily the most friendly towards one another. So here I was over in Fort Worth selling the Dallas Business Journal. And so needless to say, I had a lot of people that didn't like me. I had a lot of people that said no. But at the end of the day, I found ways to work with people and ways to be successful. And what that taught me is that it takes a lot more than just good sales skills and product and service knowledge to be successful. And as I started to coach others and as I started to manage others, there was clearly a gap between those people that were your top 10 or 20% performers and the rest of the group. And the big gap, again, went right back to what are the beliefs, What are the limiting beliefs? What are the voices that are inside of my head that are keeping me from being successful? And so we chose to identify that, and essentially we're talking about drive. You know, what is it that makes somebody get up in the morning? How do we properly motivate somebody? Well, from an external standpoint, you can try all the gift cards and all the pizza, but that only lasts until it's gone.
Right.
So it's really about the intrinsic motivators that people have, you know, the need for recognition, the need for growth, the need for learning. Those are the things that are going to move people along over the long term. And when it comes to sales, most of the larger sales training programs that are out there, again, they're addressing sales skills and they're addressing product knowledge, but they're not addressing the mentality of a champion and what it takes to actually drive business in the face of rejection on a regular basis or a day-to-day basis.
EQ.
EQ again. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do you do any practical coaching, like on how to sell on, say, on social media, or how to tap into the market and how to reach the market in a profitable way in addition to the psychological coaching? Do you...
Absolutely. We take the full gamut. We have a program called Sales Excellence. And in Sales Excellence, we look at, you know, is the organization a customer-focused organization, or are they more internally focused? That matters in the way that they go to market. Is the organization well aligned? You know, do they have a corporate strategy aligned with product? Do they have a product strategy aligned with sales? Is sales aligned with marketing? And how does that affect the customer, the overall customer experience? So we look at all of those major contributors to success. And then at the end of the day, if salespeople need sales training, we do consultative sales training as well as transactional sales training.
I guess my question, you said a program. So is this something that's actually written, or is it a video, or is it more of a coaching one-on-one, or is there a blend of all of the above?
So coming out this year, we're going to have Sell Like a Champ. Last year we had Sell Like a Champ, the workshop. This year we're going to have Sell Like a Champ, the book, coming out. And one of the really cool things that we're talking about doing with the book is implementing it into some software to where you can have actionable insights, and a manager can say, okay, well, here's the quick lesson for today, because as you know, the millennials and Generation Z behind them, you cannot give them a 400-page research book.
No, you can't.
They're going to look at it and use it as a paperweight. So we've written the book so that it's in very small bites, so that at any time somebody could pick it up and even use it as a reference book of sorts. But we want to use it with the teams, and we want to get the managers talking to the reps and dual accountabilities. And through the apps and tools that we have, they can actually keep real time. How well am I doing towards this task? So going back to emotional intelligence, if I'm a more task-oriented person, and one of my goals after reading one of our chapters is to connect with people and build stronger relationships, then I'm going to set a goal that week to actually do that. And then my manager is going to rank me on how well I did that, and I'm also going to rank myself on how well I did that. Nice.
Do you have like an ideal client? Is it a small company, a medium, a large, or are you all over the map with that?
Our business elevation model identifies 5 different stages of business. So the first one is inception, the second one is survival, the third level is growth, the fourth level is expansion, and the fifth level is mature. Okay.
Right.
So when we go in and we do our discovery, we identify at what place the business is and what do they need to go to get to the next level. So we kind of use that map, but if you ask me about a preference, I like the middle market. And I like middle market because we can go in and we can help them, and within 4 to 5 months we can see tremendous change within the organization. When I go into a Fortune 500 company or a company that has thousands or tens of thousands of employees, you can go in and you can work for 18 months and get this close to a whole lot of success, and suddenly somebody new comes in and changes everything.
I've seen that. I've had that.
And that can be pretty disappointing at the end of the day. But then there's also the solopreneur. I also like working with them just because I can give them some advice and some help from an executive standpoint or an executive coaching standpoint that causes that light bulb to go off. And at the end of the day, that's why I do this business. It's all about helping others. It's all about seeing that light bulb go off for them, and so that they can take off and they can run with their dreams.
Excellent. Do you provide people with some kind of financing to be able to afford depending on the company, some of the newer companies may need to get some funding to be able to work with you?
Absolutely. That's what the fit for funding, it kind of helps us as well, right? If we see a really good potential candidate, we can connect them with the banks and the financial partners that can help them get to where they need to be financially, and then we can come in and help them from the operations and the people side.
Sounds like you're having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk to you after the interview about how to convert your book to an audio video or a video. That's what I do, a lot of that.
Yeah, that would be great.
And I'm just listening to what you're doing. I have some ideas for you. I don't want to put them on the air, but I think that might be fun. I'd love if that's something you'd be interested in. But people, here's his information. Springboard Consulting, 972-977-20, is that 21?
2140.
2140. And do you work with people around the country, or are you more of a local trainer?
I like to stay local because I have 3 kids, but I just got a new client in San Francisco last week, so I'll go anywhere in the U.S., Canada, Mexico. I kind of like to stay on this continent. Because
we do have viewers in Alabama and some other states, so I just wanted to see. And there's the phone number, and there's a website, Springboard Consulting. Can people call to see if you might be a good fit for their business, just to get an idea if it's a match? Absolutely. Always available at 972-977-2140. You can also reach us at www.springboard.consulting. Excellent. Well, I want to encourage my viewers to consider having this service. I know a lot of you have businesses, and if you're trying to maximize your success, this sounds like someone who could really help you. So I want to thank you for that. And speaking of helping, I would like to help you too. As the fastest reader in the world, I'm always available. You could call me at 214-952-9150. That's my cell phone. Let me know if you'd like to set up a consultation with me. Let me see how your business is doing with information management. If you have kids in school that are struggling, get help. Maybe you have a senior who wants to stay mentally fit. You can help that as well. You could look at some of my resources at hbspeedreading.com. And of course, anytime you get one of my resources, I personally mentor you. I have my cell phone. You can call and say, Howard, I have a question. And I will make sure you actually learn what you paid for. There aren't a lot of authors that do that. Try calling up somebody from a book that's written a book and get them on the phone to tell you how to actually make it happen. I'm probably one of the only ones doing that. But like you, I like helping people, and I think it's important that you don't just take their money, that you're there when they actually need you. So you can go to Mr. Reader at msn.com and send me an email. Let me know if you'd like to be on the show. Maybe you have an idea for a future show, or maybe you would like to be a guest on a future show. Well, we're running out of time, so till next time, Howard Burg wishing you and yours best of success. The truth sets you free. With the world's fastest reader, Howard Stephen Burg.